point from the input from the audience. Yes, sir.
Thank you. Melissa Kitson, Constructing Excellence in Wales. It's Una again, I'm sorry. I'm very surprised, Una, that as Chief Exec of a housing association, that you said that you have these problems with contractors, and you say that they are time and time and time again. Are you trying to improve on that? How are you procuring these contractors? Because there's lots of good practice out there now.
I don't know what to say. Yes, of course. I mean, it's a real constant struggle to get them to come back on site, and it's not just the small contractors; it's the large national contractors as well. I mean, we threaten them with recharging. So if they don't come and do the repair, we'll recharge it. We threaten the contract. I mean, we use all the measures and all the means, and we've done this for many years.
But how are you procuring them in the first place? Is that on lowest price tender, or is this through a framework or a long-term partner?
All of those. I mean, we have some contractors who we get through framework agreements. We have some that we've just tendered. We have some that we negotiate with because they bring us land. So you negotiate with them, it doesn't seem to make a difference, to be quite honest. And you're almost suggesting from your question that you have a different experience. Maybe we should talk afterwards.
I was going to say that I know there are a few consultants in this room here today who would be only too willing to come and help you, and particularly the gentleman sat next to you. But we certainly can, and I know Constructing Excellence nationally certainly can help you with that.
I know that we're not alone as well, because I'm involved in lots of other housing association forums, and it's pretty universally what we experience.
Bob, do you want to add something to that in terms of how you keep your supply chain in?
I wish I could. It is quite difficult. I mean, being a retailer, of course, you measure everything and everybody in terms of how they perform, what their quality aspects are. But one of the things we've really improved upon is the handover of the building to our client. I only have one client, and that is Asda, and therefore they tend to be very intolerant individuals, in particular if you get anything that doesn't work. And so we've taken it sort of slightly a different tack. We tell everybody exactly what our building performance should be and what it should look like. So we say it's very straightforward. Again, we borrowed it from our trading floor. We take pictures of our stores, and we say to everybody that's how this store should look at a particular time, whether it is handed over, whether it is maintained, and also we've got more detailed analysis of how the HVAC should work, or how the M&E should perform, or the lighting, etc., or how that building should perform. But there's one thing for sure, is that we have a very, very clear message that goes to our contractors, subcontractors and consultants that building is there for the legacy of its own, in which case then take your time to make sure that building is built to the best of its ability. We have more rigorous standards regarding leakage than many in our field. In which case that's very, very important for us, and we will measure that. And that's back to back as well in terms of the feedback we get from that particular building. So after 3 months we go through an analysis of how the energy consumption is of that building, and we'll let those particular contractors know and subcontractors know whether it's performing as we've decided it should be at the start of that contract. So we don't let it lie, we keep going at it. And because we're not a one-off client, we don't just build one thing, we have the benefit to link into a number of projects.
The gentleman in the second row.
David Mellor, an architect. I'm not at all surprised that Una has the problems that he's talking about. We have them all the time as architects, and I'm intrigued to know what the sort of mechanisms are that could improve it. I think if you have repeat business, in the case of Asda, and you have a reasonably well-defined product which you're refining, it's a bit more like the car industry, which Latham or Regan or whatever I was always talking about. All my work on the whole is bespoke, whether it's a new school or a new headquarters building for somebody. Very little of it is straight repeat business. So we try to work with contractors that we know. They don't really have a regular supply chain. I think one of the things that Egan and people were talking about was expecting that to happen. In my experience, it hasn't happened. And so good contractors, and I'm not certainly going to mention names in this company, are still dependent upon a lot of quite small people who then probably do compete on price, and they're supposed to be competing on the same sort of levels of quality, but getting them back after a contract is very hard work, and the main contractor is let down, if you like, but it's a whole series of people, as David says. We're a very disparate industry. They're not directly in control at the moment. Of course, some of those people are going bust, which doesn't help, but that's been happening in the last 10 or 20 years, not just now. So it's a tricky one, and I'd be delighted to know from other people in the audience how we an industry improvement. But I think it is very different if you've got to repeat large-scale client situation, or possibly even with the local authority. I don't know how it works quite in that context. I'm just saying I think it's very widespread, and it's something we haven't yet really sorted out.
Yes, I mean our work is very diverse. We go from the large capital projects right the way down to the repairing the tap washers or whatever individual premises, and so the problems are slightly different. As far as our larger projects are concerned, we have deliberately gone down the procurement route of having a framework in place with a limited number of shall we say regional rather than local contractors, but contractors who have got a vested interest in my community, because I am a community organisation. I'm here to serve my community. And we made very clear to them at the outset that one of the measures which they would be judged upon was their performance, not only in building the building to the standards which we wanted, but also in how well it performed in its first instance, and also their performance in assisting us in making sure that the problems were resolved. They also, of course, have a vested interest in the local community, because most of their children go to our schools, most of their parents are employed by us locally, and so on. So there is a whole bit in there for us to work with. As far as the smaller contractors are concerned, they usually have a one-to-one relationship with the schools or with the other premises, and that is very, very powerful. We have some very forthright head teachers, bursars, and so on, who do not stand any truck with contractors who don't perform, and are quite happy to go elsewhere if necessary. But we try to set out what is expected of them before they start. If they understand what standards are expected, then they really have no excuse for not performing. And we do try to positively manage it, not wait for the problems to occur further down the line.
It would be great to take a comment from one of the main contractors in the audience.
Alistair Lindsay, Area Director for Morgan Ashurst. Sorry, I was talking the microphone. We recognise it's a problem. What we've just done in the last couple of months is gone over to an email, or in the last few days gone over to an email system and said to our clients, please communicate through this way, because one of our biggest problems is it's not clear what the problem is. Did somebody break it? Did somebody not know how to use it? Or is it actually a defect? And if that goes to subcontractors, they go to site and say, well, it wasn't our problem, and walk away, and it doesn't get sorted. So we're asking people to communicate instantly, tell us what it is. We can then monitor that monthly, because we're now asked for information, and we want to go to our clients and say, last month we had 32 defects and we've done 16, and of that 16, 5 were our problem and 5 were some other problem. And here are the figures, and pre-quals are now starting to ask for that information. So I think if you start asking us for that information, we're now going to come back and say, we recognise it's a problem, but we very much recognise it's a problem. We want to sort it. And in the electronic age, what we really need from clients is, please tell us precisely what went wrong, when it went wrong, when do you need it sorted, and will you be there when we turn up? We don't do social housing now, we'd used to, but 70% of the time we went to fix something, we couldn't get into the house. So we went away again, and a week was lost. And if we communicated better, then I think some of those problems will go away. But we really do recognise it's a big issue, it's at the top of the agenda, and we're trying to sort it out.
Communication is a really great way of tackling that.
It's going to make it better, because so much is said to people who said, and somebody said, well, we phoned you 6 months ago, and we said, well, we don't have a record, and maybe it was 3 months ago, or maybe they don't phone. This way it's all written down and there's no argument.